It is the 4th day of the month of July. A very good evening wherever you are. Thank you so much for watching Imani Television, the #1 TV station that builds our faith in Jesus Christ. Welcome to News Hour. We have a lot lined up for you in our bulletin tonight, including Azimio's call for protest against the high cost of living on Friday, and on condolences to families that lost their loved ones in the Londiani accident. We have news about security status in north of Kenya, health news, among other stories. But for now, let's take a look at what made news in our country today.
Na kwa hivyo wamesema ati siku ya saba, tarehe 7 mwezi wa 7, Ijumaa ijao, Wakenya wote, Kenya mzima watajitokeza na kusema kwamba enough is enough.
It is glaring that only a quarter of Kenyans have a form of health insurance, and therefore
this is called sudden death. I know how painful it is. Mimi najua how painful it is. Lakini naomba tu Mungu ampatie nguvu. Mungu to bear the loss.
Ukitaka kuaddress mambo ya food security hapa, lazima tuwe na stability ya uchumi ya kina mama nyumbani.
Niko na huzuni kwa sababu mfanyikazi katika kaunti yangu, village administrator wangu mwanamke, mke wa mtu katika sehemu ya Turkana West, ameuliwa jana barabarani.
But we are happy to report a surge and really an increase of revenue. We are now closing the year at 830 million. It has been a difficult year.
You can send us your feedback through our SMS line and also comment on our live YouTube and Facebook videos. Our handles is at Imani Television on both platforms. My name is BARASA SAENYI. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Phyllis Mirikwa Arunga. Let's begin. President William Ruto has continued to emphasize that salary increments for public servants will not be prioritized, despite the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, that is SRC, stating that plans are underway to provide salary increases for public servants, including President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua. Ruto also asserted that there must be salary harmonization between those receiving higher salaries and those receiving lower salaries. He made these remarks during the swearing-in ceremony of the newly appointed secretaries Salome Wairimu and Anne Njoki at Nairobi State House. President Ruto also urged the newly sworn-in principal secretaries to ensure that public funds are utilized properly.
We take the country towards the balance between development resources and resources spent on wages and salaries, and to ensure that every public servant is held to account and is remunerated on the basis of their performance. I am sure that you have the requisite understanding under the guidance of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. We are already engaged in that process, and the consultations are already ongoing between government departments and agencies to make sure that we bring a whole of government approach, especially on matters to do with salaries and wages. I will also be looking forward to and expecting from your department a digitization process of all our payrolls and ensuring that our human resource, we can account for who they are, what they do, what they earn, and whether it's commensurate with the performance that is in every State Department. I will also be expecting out of the State Department that we harmonize the pay and salaries of all public servants, and we progressively move towards ensuring that there is fairness and there is balance between those paid the least and those paid the most. You will get to know that the analysis that has been done on the productivity of the Kenyan public service doesn't sit very well with the rest of the globe. And therefore, the State Department that we established at the Prime Cabinet Secretary's office is such that government can address itself to the issues of productivity and to the balance between salaries, wages on one end, and development resources on the other end.
Now, the memorial mass and fundraiser service for the 53 victims of the Londiani Junction accident has today been conducted in the presence of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, and a host of other leaders. Over 47 bodies of the deceased persons have been positively identified, some released to the families for preservation at the morgues of their choices. Let's listen to what went on.
Tutaendelea kushikana mikono, tutaendelea kufanya kazi pamoja na Mwenyezi Mungu ataendelea kutusaidia. Ile tu ningesema ya mwisho. Your Excellency the Governor. Najua mambo mengi yamesemwa kwa waziri wa barabara. Lakini ile changamoto tuko nayo ni kwa makauntis ya kwamba lazima tutafute shamba hata kama ni karibu na barabara ili wanabiashara wanapoendelea na kazi yao wapate mahali mzuri ya kukaa na pia wapate wateja wa kuuzia bidhaa.
Tumekuja hapa kuomboleza na watu wa Kericho na watu wa Londiani na Kenya mzima pia tunaomboleza kwa kupoteza wenzetu wengi kwa ajali ile ilitokea pale. Wengine wameongea, sheria ipo. Ile tunataka kuomba ni kwa wale ambao wamepatikana na hatia, tafadhali mkono wa sheria iwafikie.
Napenda kusema pole kwa watu wa Kericho na dunia hii yote ya Kenya kwa kupoteza watu.
Tumekuja hapa kusema pole. Watu wa Kericho na watu wetu wa kutoka Nakuru, najua tumepoteza. This is called sudden death. I know how painful it is. Mimi najua how painful it is. Lakini naomba tu Mungu ampatie nguvu Mungu to bear the loss na ampe peace that surpasses all the human understanding. And you mourn, Mungu amsaidie mourn as you move forward. I know how it pains. I lost my daughter in a sudden death, murder. Talking 9 o'clock in the evening, in the morning, you are being called. She's in hospital. So I know how you are feeling.
All right, let's get to some other news. We are right, we are not wrong. We are resorting to civil disobedience and protests. We can't be wrong unless the law itself is wrong. These are the quoted words of the opposition chief and leader of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya, Raila Odinga, as he urged their supporters to come out in large numbers on Friday, 7th July, commonly known as the Saba Saba Day, to attend their planned rally. Raila, while addressing members of the press, has urged their supporters to not give up but stay in the fight till the end. He added that meetings of a similar nature will also be held across the country to launch the third liberation, during which signature collection exercise to signify a rejection of Ruto's policies will be commissioned. Raila said food, fare and fuel prices have all gone up and they can't keep quiet and suffer in silence. Let's watch.
Na kwa hivyo wamesema ati siku ya Sabasaba, tarehe 7 mwezi wa 7, Ijumaa ijao, Wakenya wote, Kenya mzima utajitokeza na kusema kwamba enough is enough. We can get many of the things that we not only desire, but which we justly deserve. From Friday, let's proceed with bold determination that we are going to stick together. We are going to work together. Let us stay with this fight until the end. We abhor violence. By embarking on pickets, protests, tax boycotts, and civil disobedience, we are not in any way advocating violence. We have never advocated violence in the past. We will never advocate it now or in the future. We believe in the law and the rule of law and will act within the law.
Now, despite challenging economic situations experienced in the fiscal year that ended on June 30th, 2023, with many counties struggling to collect their revenues, Makueni County has had interventions that have seen the county endowed with an advantage of mango production record, an increase in revenue collection. Let's watch.
When we look at our sources of revenue, when we look at March last year, that is the third quarter of the year 2022, the county had raised 477 million. But as at March in the current year, we had already gotten to 585 million compared to last year. As we closed the year, the year that has ended last week, in the year 2022, our own source revenue closed the year at 746 million. But we are happy to report a surge and really an increase of revenue. We are now closing the year at 830 million. It has been a difficult year, but we were able to increase our revenue with more than 80 million. Even in a year that was quite difficult with a lot of drought, we had really to make interventions to feed our people. But we have been able to raise our own source by 80 million. So we are glad that the interventions are bearing fruit in the current year. Our projection for next year is if our interventions work correctly, we want to exceed 1 billion in revenue collection because we are looking at the interventions to be able to bear.
All right, we move forward, and primary school students in Kimilili, Bungoma County have a reason to smile as their local member of parliament, Didmas Barasa, has constructed classrooms at a cost of 10 million Kenyan shillings to cater for their needs. Speaking during the unveiling of the new classes, Barasa promised to ensure that all public schools in the area are renovated and constructed of new classrooms. He noted that he has already disbursed money to some schools. Furthermore, Barasa has inaugurated a technology communication center and a library that will enable the students to conduct their research effectively.
Basi ghorofa hii ya darasa 8 ambayo tunafungua siku ya leo. Leo pia kwa hii mradi ambayo tumemaliza hii, naongeza shilingi milioni 8 hii madarasa mzee ya zamani na hii ingine mpaka ifanane na hii. Na pia hii madarasa yote, hii ni shule ya town. Tutaweka tiles kwa kila darasa, hata ghorofa hii kuwemo, na hapa tuweke kabro ndio tuchukue na matope kwa shule ya town.
Hatutaki matope.
Hata ile ya Kimilili RC Girls ya wasichana. Vile pia nimeweka hapo shilingi milioni 8. Pia madarasa yale ya zamani rekebishwe kuwe mpya ifanane ile ghorofa ambayo nilijenga hapo. Mahali ambapo library ya SAENYI ilikuwa inakaa, kuanzia hii wiki watahama waende kwa library mpya ambayo nimejenga, na hiyo mahali library ya zamani ilikuwa inakaa tutaanza kujenga hapo Huduma Center. Mimi nimeongea na county government.
Now let's get some health news. Kenya's total fertility, that's fertility I said. Kenya's total fertility has dropped from 3.9% in 1989 to 3.4% in 2022. A Kenya Demographic and Health Survey carried out last year shows that Mandera has the highest fertility rate at 7.7%, while Nairobi has the lowest at 2.2%. While attributing this to successful family planning programs, the Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nahumicha said that the Ministry of Health would continue to ensure access to healthcare so as to have a nation of healthy people.
The Kenya Demographic Health Survey is one of the very important sources of health data that we use to complement routine health data. It is glaring that only a quarter of Kenyans have a form of health insurance, and therefore, this is one of the focus areas for improvement by my ministry as we strive to attain universal health coverage through the National Social Health Fund.
All right, and in other news, women in Busia have been encouraged to participate in agriculture as a means of fighting poverty and ensuring food security. Instead of depending on other food sources, they are advised to focus on planting crops that have a high demand in local industries. They contributed together a sum of 156,000 to support business initiatives where many of them are involved in poultry and pig farming.
Sema ya kwamba tukipata vikundi kama hizi ambao ni wamama wanaona mbele, tunaweza enda mbele. Tumeweza kuchengea kununulia watu mang'ombe, tumeweza fanya vitu tofauti tofauti. Kuna wenye walikuwa wamegoma kwenda shule, tumewachangia wameenda kusomesha. Leo hii tumeleta kwa wamama table banking ya shilingi 1,306.
Miradi ambayo ni ya kukuza kuku, miradi ya kufuga nguruwe, miradi ambayo sasa ni ya kufanya hata catering services, kuwa na haya mahema na kupanua maono yao ya mapato. Ukitaka kuaddress mambo ya food security hapa, lazima tuwe na stability ya uchumi ya kina mama nyumbani, na wamama wakiwa na stability tutakuwa na chakula kwa meza.
Saizi tuko na shares, tuko na merry-go-round, tuko na table banking. Unaweza kopa pesa ufanyie biashara yako.
All right, let's head to Turkana County, where leaders in that said county are raising concerns about the lack of security on your way from Lodwar heading to Kitale, particularly in Kainuk and KWS. This follows the killing of one person and the shooting of two others that are still nursing injuries. The leaders claim that the criminals come from a neighboring county and are now requesting President William Ruto and the Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki to address the issue of livestock theft and rustling. They have assured drivers that security officers from the Kenya Defence Forces, Rapid Deployment Unit and the police are patrolling in the area to eradicate such incidences.
Mimi leo hii niko na huzuni kama gavana wa Turkana County. Niko na huzuni kwa sababu mfanyikazi katika kaunti yangu, village administrator wangu mwanamke, mke wa mtu katika sehemu ya Turkana West, ameuliwa jana barabarani na maadui.
Sisi tunataka kuomba Waziri Kindiki, tunataka kuomba serikali kuu kupitia Your Excellency William Samoei Ruto. Ulituambia kila siku kwamba hii mambo ya cattle rustling itaisha, mpende msipende. Sasa sio cattle rustling saa hii, imekuwa ni kupiga risasi wasafiri wanaosafiri bila neno.
Sasa hapa tena wameua officer ya county. Sasa wameua officer ya county vile ya administrator. Wao kichocho amekufa. Alafu tena wameinja tena watu wengine wawili na askari. Sasa mimi nataka kuuliza, wameua officers ya national, wamemaliza. Sasa wamekuja kuwa ya county, wamemaliza. Wameenda sasa kwa village. Sasa hapana.
Sisi hatukatai amani. Sisi tumekubali amani tukiwa viongozi, tukiongozwa na gavana yetu. Lakini jambo tunaomba, hiyo ng'ombe irudi kuanzia wiki kesho. Irudi na Wapokot warudishe ng'ombe yao, warudishe mahali ambapo inatakana wapeleke.
Now on to some sports news. Hundreds of fans of Kakamega Homeboys Football Club flooded the streets of Kakamega town to celebrate their team's victory after a 1-0 triumph over Tusker FC in the final of their FKF Cup on Saturday. The exuberant supporters arrived in a convoy of vehicles parading through the entire city of Kakamega. This historic victory marks the club's first ever national title win. Governor Fernandez Barasa of Kakamega County, who received the trophy, assured the fans that the government would provide the necessary assistance and resources to support the teams participating in continental competitions.
Hautakuwa mchezo rahisi, maana ni another game tofauti. Inataka a lot of qualityness katika play, inataka a lot of teamwork na a lot of insight katika hizo michezo, which naamini kwa uwezo wa Mwenyezi Mungu, tukiwa pamoja, tukishirikiana pamoja, tukifanya kazi pamoja, tukianza maandalizi vizuri bila mambo mengi, nadhani tutafanya vyema.
Now, the US Embassy and the Kenyan government have pledged to collaborate in combating terror threats in the country and the region. During the celebration of the US Independence Anniversary in Nairobi, US Ambassador to Kenya, Margaret Whiteman, strongly condemned the recent attacks by Al-Shabaab insurgents in Lamu and Garissa counties, which resulted in the tragic deaths of dozens of Kenyans, including security officers. In response, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi declared that the security apparatus will now shift their focus to addressing the Al-Shabaab threat after successfully dealing with firearms issues in the North Rift region.
Well, I think the attacks on the KDF and the Kenyan police on the border of Somalia and Kenya underscore the need to make sure we are vigilant and we partner together to defeat Al-Shabaab. It is a threat to Americans, it's a threat to Kenyans. Frankly, it's a threat to the entire continent. But I've not been to Garissa, I've not been to Lamu, in part because it is dangerous. But I think it's so important that we continue to work together. And I am convinced that if we were not working together as Kenyans and Americans, there would probably be more attacks than there have been in recent years. So any war, any fighting, any terrorist attacks are destabilizing to the entire region. As, by the way, 9/11, which I also mentioned, was destabilizing to America.
What happened in Lamu, of course, is unfortunate, but I can tell you that through the collaboration, the government of Kenya has been able to forestall so many other.
Now on to some international sports news. Man United has agreed on a 60 million euros deal with the Chelsea for Mason Mount. England international set to sign 5-year contract at Old Trafford with option of a further year. Mount has now completed his medical leave, and as you can see on the screens, contracts are now being finalized and a formal announcement expected in the next 24 hours. The deal is 55 million euros initial payment plus 5 million euros in performance-related add-ons. Mount has 1 year left on his contract at Stamford Bridge, and United initially had 3 bids rejected by their Premier League rivals. United remain in talks with Atlanta over the signing of striker Rasmus Hojlund. A gap in valuation exists, but it is thought that the player wants to make the move. Well, from that sports news marks the end of our news hour tonight, news hour bulletin this evening. Keep watching Money Television for more spiritual awakening programs. My name is BARASA SAENYI, and Phyllis Miriko Arunga has been our sign language interpreter. Have a good night.